I don't know about you, but I was slightly disturbed to see a report in the newspaper that sarcasm, of all things, is now verboten in our universities. Sarcasm and making fun of people and all the rest is not something we're supposed to do at universities. We're now seeing political correctness. We've had several things this week. We've had the business about whether Australia was invaded or settled, and how one university has its point of view that this is how we must talk about this. We've also seen various other things. There's been a lot of anti-Semitism within our universities. What is actually going on? Now, it's a long time since I was at university, and I was one of the most sarcastic people there, so I'm disturbed by this sarcasm story. But joining me is Matthew Lesh. Matthew is at the IPA, and Matthew was at university a lot more recently than I was. How are you, Matthew?
I'm good. How are you going?
Good, mate. Now, you've put together a report at the IPA. You're at the IPA, the Institute of Public Affairs. Fascinating report about the things that are happening in our universities. What is going on? What is all this about?
Yeah, look, what I think we're seeing here is a real suffocating of intellectual debate on campus. I mean, you referenced the UNSW case, which was all about certain kind of Indigenous language you're supposed to use. Apparently, you're supposed to not say Indigenous Australians have been here for 40,000 years. You're supposed to go down the spiritual line and say Indigenous Australians have been here since the Dreamings. You mentioned that University of Queensland case about sarcasm, that you're not supposed to use sarcasm on campus. At Federation University here in Victoria, we've got a case that you're not supposed to hurt other people's feelings. And look, what really worries me about this is the sense in which, in order to have a kind of opening, free intellectual discussion on campus, students shouldn't be sitting there wondering in class, am I going to make someone feel uncomfortable by expressing my viewpoint? Is someone going to be offended? You really can't have proper debate if students are covering themselves in bubble wrap, trying to avoid any sense of intellectual combat, which I think is what universities should really all be about.
So what's this about feelings? Why is it wrong to hurt someone's feelings on campus? When did this idea creep in?
Yeah, I think this idea that university students need to be treated like preschoolers has been developing in recent history, and quite frankly, some students probably don't help it by trying to shut down debate themselves. And I think this really comes out of a sense in which students, many students, are less willing to take the intellectual high road. I think, for example, something that's developed quite a lot overseas but is also coming to Australia is trigger warnings. Today at the La Trobe Student Union, for example...
Just talk us through trigger warnings, because most people are completely baffled. What on earth is a trigger warning?
Yeah.
What does it mean? What is the purpose of it?
Yeah, so trigger warnings are supposed to be kind of a bit of a heads up before disturbing content, but they've been taken so far in certain cases to the level of absurdity. So at the La Trobe Student Union, you can't talk about gore, chewing or food without providing a trigger warning.
Well, sorry, why? What are you triggering? What emotions are you supposedly triggering with those words?
Well, that's a very good question that sadly I cannot answer because of where this has really reached. And these are the same kind of people who are then going along and protesting speakers just because they slightly disagree with them about what they're saying. These are the kind of people who want to see academics like John Lomberg not able to set up at the University of Western Australia. So I think what we're seeing really across the country is this growing censorious culture on campus that's very dangerous for the future of Australian society.
So what's it like, Matthew? What's it like being a student? You were a student very recently. What's it actually like? Is it intimidating to be in this sort of environment?
I think it is, and I think what happens to a lot of students is they end up kind of going into a little shell and not expressing their viewpoints. Everyone will just sit there kind of agreeing in class rather than challenging each other. And as a consequence of that, you can't have the level of kind of open debate that I think is really vital to, setting people up for the real world. I mean, in the real world, hurting other people's feelings is something that happens every day.
It's a profession for many of us. Now, Matthew, also, you wrote a terrific article for me in The Spectator magazine where you talked about anti-Semitism. Just very briefly, you had several examples at La Trobe University, the ANU. We had a Jewish group where members were called Israeli bitches and dirty Jews and a Zionist piece of filth and so on. Is this going on in our universities, and why?
Look, unfortunately it is. I think what's kind of happening here is in the name of kind of anti-Israel activism, attacking really the only democracy in the Middle East. That's how warped these worldviews are. They've gone on from that to kind of an intellectual debate to very much targeting individual Jewish students. So you saw that case at the Monash where students couldn't go to a public lecture hosted by the left on campus because they identified them as Jewish. We had quite a severe case of bullying with a certain student's face being posted all over campus because they spoke out against the absurdity about Israel.
So hang on, Matthew, they put someone's face all over campus with
Yeah,
what?
in
A
fact,
comment about being Jewish or Israeli, or what was that about?
Yeah, so this was a Labor student who they supported Israel, or at least supported kind of a moderate view on Israel. They put up posters around campus claiming she supported genocide, and went up to her on multiple occasions and started confronting her and genuinely bullying her, and sending people up to make her feel terrible.
So this is a
19-year-old
19-year-old student in one of our universities, young girl, being bullied by left-wing socialist activists, accusing her of genocide and publicly humiliating her. This is going on in our centres of learnings, our taxpayer-funded centres of learnings, and what are the universities doing to stop this?
Sadly, not enough. I think the universities need to come out there and say we need, a good, free, civil, intellectual debate on campus. Yes, it's okay to be sarcastic. No, it's not okay to come up and bully and harass other students. So I think that unfortunately, the kind of acceptable list of ideas on campus and what you're allowed to say without being confronted is increasingly getting smaller. And I think it's very important for universities to, as some universities have in America who've said this has gone too far, to really come out in favour of an open, intellectual, reasonable debate.
Yeah, Matthew, I look forward to you fighting the good fight, and please, for the sake of our students, please carry on this good work. Great to talk to you, Matthew. We'll see you around.
Great to talk to you.
Okay, mate. Take care.